today's guest on the Boyk Brief is photographer, videographer, and director Nick Amrhein. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Andrea.
So Nick recently was here at Boyk Law. He did our pictures. They came out great, so we had to have him back and ask some questions. So you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Nick, I got to start with your bio on your website. So it says, heavily tattooed, rides a Harley, skateboarder, and a type 1 diabetic. So let's break that down. Heavily tattooed, how many qualifies as heavily?
Wow. Well, I got my first tattoo when I was 18 years old. I was living out in California. It was a camera. And then I just got like hooked. It was almost like if you started like a canvas, like painting, and you painted a corner of it and you stood back and you're like, I started that corner, but now I got to like finish the whole canvas. So like my arms, my back, my chest, my shoulders, my legs, everything's covered. I mean, there's small little gaps that need to be filled, but I would probably say there's at least over 40 tattoos.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you go back to the same person or?
So actually I've done all barter work. The only time I've ever paid for a tattoo is when I paid $50 in Ann Arbor. You pay $50 and it's called Get What You Get. You pay $50, you reach in a bowl, and whatever you pull out, you get tattooed.
No way. So what did you pick?
I ended up getting just like a little scorpion, and it's on like my ankle.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, I would not recommend that. So.
Yeah, don't do that until like you can like easily blend it in somewhere.
Sure.
So.
Well, very cool. All right, rides a Harley. So did you buy it locally?
So I got my motorcycle in Denver, Colorado. It's a Harley Sportster. So I grew up skateboarding, and that was like my main passion. And then as I got older, I wasn't as able to skateboard as much. And a lot of skateboarders transition into riding motorcycles. It's kind of like the same kind of like street culture riding. I don't know. They kind of just go inside with each other.
Okay.
So yeah, I ended up picking up, getting into motorcycles probably in my mid-20s, and I just love it. So.
Have you only had one or multiple?
I think I've only had two. My first one was like a really old like Honda CB750, which is like looks like a cafe racer kind of bike.
Okay.
But it was like from the 80s, but like every time I went to go ride it, there was a problem with it. And I don't know how to fix motorcycles, so I was like, I just want to get on the bike and ride.
Yeah.
And so then that's when I got the Harley one.
So I feel like all of my clients who get into motorcycle accidents, that's their main priority, is getting their motorcycle fixed. They don't even care about their injuries. Is that something that is just comes with owning a motorcycle?
Luckily I've never went down, so I can't relate to like, oh, once you go down you're ready to go riding again. I feel like it might shake me up a little bit. I've heard people get motorcycle accidents and they never get back on their bike again.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, there's just a desire about it, of riding in the freedom, the escape. I like to in the summer use my motorcycle to go and do like camping trips or take rides, and it's like a cool expression, I guess. I even like go skateboarding with it. I'll put my skateboard on the sissy bar and go ride. I've had my dog on my bike before, a little Chopper.
Oh my goodness.
That's why his name Chopper, like Chopper motorcycles.
What kind of dog?
He's a Chihuahua mix.
And how old is he?
He's 8 years old.
Okay.
Yes, I got him when he was 1, so I've had him like 7 years.
Oh, is he still getting on the bike with you?
No, like I think he's like becoming an old man or something, because like he'd get on the bike and he used to like enjoy it. Like he'd be riding, and I had like a specific book bag for him on the back.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like one riding season, like the pipes were like super loud for his ears, and he was just like barking nonstop. And I'm like, yeah, he ain't liking it no more.
We're done.
So, I don't want to torture the little dude. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
So.
All right. Well, that gets us into skateboarder. So
Yeah.
Is that something you're still doing?
Yeah, I skateboard in the summer. It was like the first thing I did. Probably around like 10 years old. It was like my first passion was skateboarding. Which then eventually led to me being a photographer and videographer. But I know anything and everything about skateboarding because it was my first passion, and it still is like I'm crazy obsessed with it. But yeah, I try to skateboard every summer. It's like, I don't know.
Where do you go in this area to skateboard?
I mean, skateboarding really is in the streets, so you could skateboard anywhere. But like the older you get, like you don't want to deal with cops, you don't want to deal with security kicking you out. Right. And like I'm a business owner, So like as a kid, you don't think about things when you go to a business or you're going downtown and you're like jumping over these stairs or this handrail or like waxing a curb and destroying property. Like you just think like, I'm having fun. Like what's wrong with that? Like, why are you kicking me out? Now I'm like, I feel so bad. I was like grinding that bench that the Metro Parks probably put there, like, and spent their money. But
are there any local parks though for?
Yeah, so now I'll just go to local parks. I mean, growing up, there was no parks, and then they slowly started to blossom. The first big park was at Woodville Mall, if you remember that.
Yes.
There was an indoor skate park there.
Oh, I did
the mall's not
know
even there
that.
anymore. The thing is like, but there was a big skate park in there. So that was like the first one. And then Highland, which is I think in South Toledo, was the next big one that the city put together. And now they're in there everywhere. They're in like Sylvania, BG, Oregon. So you can go to any one of these.
Now, I don't know the difference. Is there like the short board or the long board, or what do you?
Exactly, longboard, like a longboard. Okay. Yeah, but they don't call it a short board. It would just be called like a skateboard.
Do you prefer one or the other?
Yeah, traditional skateboard, because I grew up skateboarding the streets. So they all have like different purposes. Like a longboard is more if you want to ride for longer rides and cruising. Oh, yes. A traditional board is just going to be for the streets and maybe like a half pipe, like vert. And then they got mini boards, what they call like penny boards, and those are like the original ones where you see like those kids are like probably without a shirt, and then they're in like swim trunks and their feet are together, and they look like they're like a surfer from California, because that was like their origination of skateboarding, which was like on these little boards they call like penny boards. Gotcha. They're like cruisers too. Okay. So, yeah.
Type 1 diabetic. So most people aren't going to put their medical history online. What made you want to do that?
I think it's a big part of who I am. When it happened, I was 18 years old, and out of nowhere, I started just feeling like I was getting sick, loss of energy, loss of like 30 pounds, super dehydrated, and I was at Owens for a short period of time right after high school, and I was falling asleep in class and waking up in other college classes, and like I never like would fall asleep like in class. And, if you do that in high school, the teacher's going to be like, hey, you got to get to your next class. The bell's ringing, whatever. In college, they don't give a F. They're just like, let that dude sleep. I like wake up. The kids are like laughing at me like, dude, you know what I mean? I've been sleeping there for who knows how long. Well, actually, to back up, before I went in the emergency room, I went home after school, and I was so thirsty. When you get sick, they'll be like, oh, like drink some orange juice, get some vitamin C in you. Or I was so thirsty, it felt like I was in the desert. I got like a huge gallon of orange juice and a huge gallon of fruit punch. I don't know what I was thinking. And I went home all by myself, no one was there. And I drank them both because I was so thirsty. And then all of a sudden everything just got real black and like real faint. And then it was so scary because I was like, this doesn't feel right. And so I called my buddy. I was like, hey, I think I'm going to pass out. Can you come take me to the hospital? Because I'm like so dizzy and disoriented. Took me to the hospital. I'm vomiting in the emergency room, and they get me in right away, and my blood sugar was like somewhere over 1,500, which is like basically like not heard of. Your blood sugar, a normal person with their pancreas working, is going to be like 80 to 120. So this was so high where it's so deadly to be having that happen. And basically they were like, yeah, if your buddy didn't bring you here, like you would probably passed out on the couch, slip into a coma, and probably would have died.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a point in my life where I had found my passion for photography and video, but this almost like kicked it into gear where it's like, yo, you just almost died.
Yeah.
You need to like take life a lot more serious and like take your passion and do something with it now. So I pretty much like left and decided to go to California. I packed up my Honda Civic. I had like 200,000 miles with the bumper hanging on it, threw all my stuff in there. I had like, I think, under $1,000 in my name, and drove out and was just like, I'm ready to like find out how to do this, or make myself a name and learn. So
let me back up a little bit. Going all the way back, where'd you grow up? How'd you start? Where was home as a kid?
Basically, I grew up in Oregon, all the way from first grade all the way to high school. So Clay High School is where I went.
You said you became interested in photography or film.
Yeah.
When was that?
So I picked up my first camera, I would say roughly around when I first started skateboarding, like around either 10 or 12 years old.
Okay.
Because when you're a skateboarder, you want to film your tricks and you want to put a video part together. And this kid in middle school had one of these old VHS like shoulder cams where you have to take the tape and you put it in there and close it, and it's like mom and dad's camera, you know?
Yes.
And we had like a make-believe like skateboard team, and we started filming each other. And I just remember like, wow, this is really cool. Like, this is super fascinating. And I just kind of became obsessed with it from there. And then eventually got my own camera, started making my own pictures, and then doing video. So it was like a natural passion that came from skateboarding.
And did you take only pictures of skateboarding or everything? I mean,
I actually did, like in high school, take some darkroom classes where you actually do load your like film, which doesn't barely exist anymore.
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool. So yeah, I started out with skateboarding because that was naturally what I wanted to film. And then I think I did that for a while. We would just make skate videos. And then in high school, I think it was like my junior year, there was this kid. His name was Adnan, but his older brother Otis owned Club Eclipse downtown.
oh, yes.
The nightclub. And I was 16 at this time. And he's like, hey, my brother, like, you should come film our club. I'm like, well, I can't even get in. Like, you got to be like 18. He's like, that don't matter. My brother owns it. Like, come down. I'm like, all right. Like, so intimidated. And I remember going down there, and that was my, like, first gig, was going in the club, filming, like, DJ A-Dub, and, like, just all these people dancing, and the bartenders making drinks. And I made, like, some, like, little edit or whatever. And they were like, whoa, like, what do we got to do to get you come back more often? I'm like, you guys like it that much? Like, wow. And that's pretty much what would happen. I would just start creating these videos. Before you know, I was shooting weddings. Before you know, I was shooting like a commercial.
Oh my goodness.
And then photography-wise, it was like, oh, somebody wants me to take some family photos, senior photos. I was into a lot of like the music scene too early on. Like that was big when a lot of people wanted music videos and music promos and stuff like that. So I would do like hip hop music videos, and literally if you wanted to pay me, I was like, sure, I love it. Cause I was just like, I don't know. I just want to shoot, you know? And that
That's
almost
awesome.
became like the natural progression.
Did you ever take any classes or go to school for that?
So when I got to Clay High School, they had an amazing, which they still do, they have an amazing career and tech program for your junior and senior year. So they have, you know, COS, they have auto, they have engineering, they have all these different things where at a young age, if you have interest or passion, they can help like spark that for you, and you can get like college credit even too in high school to kind of move along. Yeah. So they had like it was called VCOM. It was like a video and photography program, and I learned like how to edit. I learned Photoshop. You were assigned projects, and I learned a lot of fundamental things. They had the cameras there you could check out. And I do remember, like, this was another pivotal moment where I realized something was special because even as, like, a sophomore where I wasn't even able to get to the career in tech, I was going down there all the time just to hang out.
Wow. And
I ended up helping out, like, the seniors on their video projects. And, like, I ended up, like, taking it over kind of. Like, not even, like, not thinking about it. Like, I didn't mean to do it on purpose, but I was just, like, obsessed. And they were, like, stoked on, like, what I was doing. And we put like this cool presentation for the auditorium, and it was like a sports rally thing. And I remember the feeling of like the first time showing somebody my work on large scale was like super, I was like, oh, this is super awesome. And I remember like my career and tech class, or a teacher, he pulled me aside eventually once I got into that class, and he was like, hey Nick, like you got something special, like you got to do something with this.
And that's amazing that you knew from that young age what your passion was.
Yeah, like I never like thought about it, but it was just like, this is what I love.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, of course this is what I'm gonna do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you went to California, LA specifically.
Yeah, yep.
So tell me about that.
Before going to LA, it was like trying to figure out if I wanted to go to college or whatever. And then once I almost pretty much died, I was just like, I ain't got time for college. Like,
No.
we gotta start doing this now. So, went out to California because that's, if you want to be in photography and video and at the top of the game in the industry, that's just where you learn, or that's where you possibly get the most opportunities. It's just like being an actor or a model. You kind of go to where it's at if you want to be in that spotlight. So I went out there, and I was out there for 3 years. I was definitely a starving artist. I mean, I lived off peanut butter and bread. The first apartment was a 1-bedroom apartment. Me and a buddy split the bedroom, and we had another dude living in the kitchen. I didn't even have like a bed. I had a pillow and a blanket, and then I literally saved up finally for a futon, and literally for internet, like, because we couldn't afford internet, I would drive down to the corner of Starbucks and sit in my car and like be able to connect to the internet and stuff. It was a very perfect time because you're so young where you don't know better.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're so excited just to live and have experiences, and you just don't know better, so you're just like, this is awesome.
So did you go there with the plan, or you just showed up like, here I am?
I knew, well, there was a buddy who went the same career and tech program as me a few years before, and he was out there. So he was like my connection. His name was Miko.
Okay.
I just knew if I went out there and tried to assist, that was going to set me up. Like, I knew I wasn't going to go out there and just start shooting and charging people. I wanted to go out there to learn. So I remember going on Craigslist and just try to see if I could get on set, if I could be an assistant, if I could help any way. And that over those 3 years, I did that. And I eventually would teach me like how to work with a client, how to set up a light, how to set up concepts, how to do invoicing. Pretty much, what would you call it? Like college, but in the streets. You know what I mean?
And I think that's so invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a video, and I was watching it, and something that stood out to me, there's a segment where you're in a car, you're driving, you're talking about your internship.
So I'm on my way to my internship right now. It's a free internship, but I'm working hard, and I want to show that I have a lot of interest in the company and that I want to progress. As far as the job is like working at the restaurant. So I need to figure out something soon where I can start pulling some income, make sure the bills are paid while I could still be at the internship. But that's the hustle of LA, and then we'll see how everything goes.
I just look back at it, I'm like just super grateful I did it at so young and I didn't know any better, like I said. And because like now, like at 35, you're like, oh yeah, you gotta go back, you gotta go to like LA and, live in an apartment with 3 dudes and eat peanut butter and bread. I'm like, oh hell no. Like, there's no way I'd be able to do that. So I look back and I'm like, man, dude, like, good thing you stuck that out and like grinded and like had that life lesson, because it made you just appreciate a lot more, and it taught you a lot, and it kind of just gave you that edge. Because eventually when I came back to here, I felt like I was ready now to take everything that I had learned and start applying it,
Yeah. I think that's so amazing, though, to have that piece of video that shows where you were then, and then be able to compare that to where you are now. And that's so invaluable to have that.
But like, I would just document like so much of my life, not even knowing like how important that would be, or that would, like, I don't even know why I was talking to it. Like, that was before like people recorded themselves talking, you know what I mean, for Instagram. I just recorded it. So it was cool when I was making that video. I was like, dang, like I was talking to the camera, like expressing like what I'm going through, how tough it is, and like I'm trying my best. So yeah, it's pretty cool to look back at that.
Have you had any other jobs besides doing what you're doing now? Anything outside of the film industry or
Yeah, so let me think. So I started my business. I went full time, where I say not working for the man, in 2010.
Okay.
So everything like out of high school, being in LA, all the way up until 2010, I was working odd jobs. You know what I mean? I was working here locally in Toledo. I mean, I've worked so many jobs. My last one was working for Mr. Emblem in Oregon, helping like lay out T-shirts. And at this time, people started hitting me up because they heard that I came back from LA. And they'd be like, hey, can we hire you to shoot this? Or, it's cool that you're back in town. Can I hire you for this? And I would try to like balance out doing some of the photography and then working 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And then I just figured, I was like, man, if I could book a couple shoots a week, like I'm only working a fraction of the hours, I could probably do this full time. I was like, I gotta go for it and just like start this business, like solely only doing photography and video and making money off that. So I took that leap, and that was like the last job I had.
Oh my goodness.
So how many years that is? 13 years.
13 years.
13 years.
And you haven't looked back since, huh?
No. Look back for good memories, and that's about it.
How would you describe your style?
So I categorize myself as a commercial advertising photographer. I like to work with businesses and brands.
Okay.
I don't shoot any of the weddings or the family stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my niche any longer.
Sure.
I think it's important for any industry you're in is to try to find a niche or try to find a specialty that you can kind of, hone in on. So within my style with that, I do have like a little bit of an edgier style. I like using lights. I don't shoot natural light. I do everything from like clean commercial work, and I can do like super, grungy portraits as well. Like if it's a model or it's a motorcycle shooter, tattoo stuff. That's kind of more of like my artistic side and letting loose with my creative freedom per se.
Do you prefer doing one over the other, photography or, videography or directing?
I'm happy I do both. I get something from each one. With photography, it's a slower pace because you're taking a still, you're analyzing it, you're looking at it, and then maybe you're doing some Photoshop, and then you finally get to see that final product. There's something unique about that and using the lights. Video, it's also a unique process because you're capturing stills in motion, and then you're laying it out on a timeline and adding, music, text, transitions, and then you step back from that and you press play. I don't prefer either, one or the other. I get both. Like I get something from both.
Do you have a favorite project that you've done?
Definitely, a couple, but I would say like I'm super passionate about the military. I had two older brothers that served. They were a lot older than me. The one served during Desert Storm. The other one served in Iraqi Freedom. One was a Marine for 9 years. The other one was in the Army for 4 years. But growing up, they were like in high school, and so they were like, I looked up to them growing up, you know what I mean? And the discipline that they had. And I tried to join the military as well, but because I'm type 1 diabetic, it disqualifies you automatically. The older I get, I just become more patriotic with like the military and just being so thankful for like their service and, the people that put themselves through that. So my first project I did as a series, it was like my first series too. It was called Bravery and Bullets, and I just wanted to highlight local veterans. I wanted to do a photo and video series where I did them sitting in the studio holding one item that meant something to them while their time of service. So some people brought like their camo pants, their boots, their dog tags, maybe a medal they had got during the service. And then I videotaped them explaining their time of service and what that item meant. And then I released each one of those once a week, and then I ended up doing like a little show at my studio. And just the way it felt and like opened my eyes to like the different stories and the different faces, it was just super powerful.
I can imagine.
So that has to be one of the best. And then I went on to do another one, but this was called Bravery and Bullets Combat Veterans. Mm-hmm. So like this one just focused on people that had been strictly in combat.
Okay.
So that was more like a niche style one. And once again, it was just like, it's just super powerful doing those things.
Are they on your website? Can people see them?
Yep. On my website, there's a tab called Series, and you can see all the different series I've done.
Do you have any big projects coming up you want to share or can talk about?
I started a passion project with a professional skateboarder named Greg Lutzka. Growing up, he was really big in the industry. I mean, he's 3-time X Game gold medalist. He's won 2 of the biggest contests in skateboarding. One where he won $160,000 on, a contest in New York. He signed one of the biggest shoe contracts in skateboarding where he went outside the core market, and signed with K-Swiss. It was just unheard of at the time. I've got to know this guy through motorcycle work that I did because he's into motorcycles. Okay. Just like I said, skateboarders transition to motorcycles. They do them both. And I was working with Harley on some video work and got to meet him, and we kind of clicked. He was from the Midwest originally, but he's in LA. He was like, hey, would you be interested? I'm kind of getting towards the end of my career. Would you be interested in telling my story and doing my documentary? And I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
So, we started planning it, and then we shot it, and I was out in LA to film it, and then we went to his hometown in Milwaukee to film where he grew up. and then I spent probably about 6 months editing. I would do like one full week once every month, like a full week every month.
Okay.
It's 2 hours long. It's like a full documentary, over 25 different interviews. So that's pretty much all wrapped up. Just finished the trailer. And Greg, since he kind of has like the connections, because when he was like at the top of his game, he had like an agent, he had a manager. So now he's like working with people to try to see if we can do something with this.
Okay.
To me, I'm just stoked. I'm like, yeah,
Exactly.
like, I don't care if it goes anywhere. Like, I'm just stoked I got to be a part of the project. But to him, he's like an entrepreneur marketing guru, where he's just like, what can we do with this? Like, what can we sponsors can we get like tied into it? Like, you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited for that.
Is that something that'll be available to the public to?
Yeah, I mean, like, he wants to try to get like on a platform. So either it be like Netflix, Hulu,
Gotcha.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, we'll have to look out for it.
But it'll be on somewhere, hopefully, and yeah, it'll be open to the public when I don't know how long that process takes or whatever, but yeah.
For sure, we'll look out for that.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, I just want to keep my health up. I want to be physically active and taking care of my type 1 diabetes and keeping up my business and staying relevant, especially with technology, always progressing, trying to stay on top of that, and always like reminding myself to challenge myself with my passion projects or whatever I'm working on with a client to produce the best work that I can, and it's not ever mundane. So
what do you want people to know about you or to remember about you?
I don't know, just say I'm like full of passion. I'm like super disciplined, and I feel I'm very grateful and blessed to be able to find a passion early on, and maybe I didn't know it was a passion early on, but the older I get, I'm just like so blessed and fortunate to be able to find that. Because older I get, I see a lot of people that maybe aren't happy in their fields or their career, and I'm like, I've never felt that. You know what I mean? And that's just that's really special, I think.
All right, that's all I have for you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for asking all the questions. That was cool.
You're welcome.
All right.